So, you want to start a garden. Alright. Why? What do you mean, why? Well, I think there's some questions you might want to ask yourself when you're talking about starting a garden. And number one amongst those is going to be why. Why do you want to start a garden? What is the purpose behind your garden? I mean, there's a ton of different types of gardens. I mean, you can go flower gardens. Behind me over here, I have a butterfly garden, which is just there to keep butterflies coming back, because we like butterflies. You can grow a garden for flowers to impress your neighbors. You can grow a garden for food, which is pretty much what I do. All right, that's my primary purpose in life, is to grow a garden for food. Now, my wife, she does the butterfly garden and a lot of the flowers, and she does a really good job. All right, we have some really neat flowers. And the really cool part about it is most of them come back year over year without having to do a whole lot of work, which is neat. I mean, I really like that. All right, and it's a whole lot less work. But we're going to make the assumption that, you know, since you are visiting my channel, that you're probably looking for a food garden. All right, so then there's another question you want to ask yourself is, how much food do I need? How big a garden, in essence, do I need? So I was looking online today, and they were saying for a family of 4, somewhere around 500 square feet of garden. And then one site gave me a little calculator that you can plug in what you want to grow, and it gives you an idea of about how many square foot you want to grow. So I plugged that in for a family of 4, and it came up with somewhere around 700 square feet. But behind you, you see somewhere in the neighborhood of about, I think, yeah, let's see, 500 or 600 square feet of garden. All right, not including the fruit trees and all of that, and all the stuff that I grow in the food forest areas. So that is a good approximation. I would say that if you're really looking to provide most of the food for your family, you're going to need 100 to 150 square foot of garden per person, plus or minus a few. A lot depends on how well your soil grows, depends on, you know, how closely you pack your plants and so on. All right, but I will tell you a bigger thing. I think for me, if I was starting out new today, would be, how much do I think I can take care of? Now, each one of these beds, see, that's 4 by 12-ish. So that's, you know, one of these longer beds here is probably around 100 square foot. Now, I can weed that, which, you know, you're going to end up having to do. You're going to do some weeding. Probably in about a 2-hour stretch, if I really go through and weed it well. All right. So 100 square foot is going to take you an hour to probably 2 hours, depending on how fast you go and the methods you use, for each 100 square foot. You know, let's just say an hour per 100 square foot. All right, and that's if you're quick. Per week, once a week, and then on top of that, you're going to have to find a way to water it. Now, if you are like me, I like to go out and hand water my gardens, because it gives me a chance to really look at things and see how they're doing, you know, and inspect my plants and see if I got, you know, pest problems or if I've got other issues that need to be taken care of. So, 100 square foot, a good solid soaking, probably take another 15-20 minutes. So let's just say 100 square foot, hour and a half a week. All right. Well, actually no, because you're gonna have to water for about 10-15 minutes. Let's just say an hour and a half per 100 square foot per week, minimum. That's bare minimum. If everything's going right, and you know, you don't have to water every day because you're getting some rain and so on. So that, I think, is one of the things that needs to be taken into consideration, is how much time do you have? Because really what gardening is a trade-off of work for money. All right, only it's going in the reverse. Typically, you trade off your time by going to work at a job somewhere, and in turn, they give you money, and with that money, you can go out and buy food and you know, shelter and so on and so forth. that's pretty much what our economy is built on. You know, where all of nature is built on grass, essentially, or chlorophyll. In our world, our life, our livelihood, is really truly based upon the idea that I'm going to trade you my time for money, and then I'm going to use that money to buy the things that I can't produce or make. So it's going to take some time, bottom line. All right, now if you don't have the time, like my daughter, my middle one, is crazy. I mean, she works full time. She helps her husband out with his movie business, and she goes to school full time. I'm talking real close to full time, if not completely full time school. So that's a lot. And then on top of that, she manages to work in a good bit of gardening. Now, I'm very impressed with the amount of effort she puts into life. Now, it will pay off later, though, and that's one of the things. It's like I keep talking about fruit trees. Fruit trees are like the stock market. All right, you invest now for return later. Now, just like the stock market, sometimes the trees die or they don't produce at all, and you have a bad year. And other times, like, you get a bountiful produce where you've got more food than you know what to do with. But that really is one of the things you need to take into consideration, in my opinion, is if you're looking at gardening. All right, now I'm talking to the just starting out crowd. How much time do you have should correlate directly to how much garden you build. Now, what's the best way to go about gardening? Oh man, that's a huge subject that, man, I hate to even really get into too deep. What I have done, and let me just put it to you that way. What I have done is I have built raised beds. Now these are 2x10. I think they were actually 2x8s. If I'm not mistaken, 2x8s. In retrospect, I would probably go with 2x10s. Now 2x10s are somewhere in the neighborhood of $14 for an 8-footer. All right, right around $20 for a 10-footer. I'm sorry, was it 10 or? Yeah, I think it was 10. Somewhere in that neighborhood. All right, and that's each. And you can build an 8x10 bed out of 2x10s for right at $41, $42 right now. And that's the prices right now at Lowe's, which is where I go here because we don't have a Home Depot close or any of the other big box stores. That and some nails, and you can put together a real quick bed, like I said, for right around $40, plus the nails if you don't have any nails, or screws, as the case may be. And I have had these, like I said, I think I've said before, I bought this house in 2016. We started building the garden right after that. So 2016, 2017, it's now 2025, so you're looking minimum 8 years, and these things are still solid, still holding the dirt in, and still doing well for me. Now there are other options. Those other options can be more expensive, but it kind of all depends. I mean, like, one of the things about these is this wood will eventually rot down. I mean, I'm getting a little bit of rot now, down deep, but it's still not real bad. But you can buy metal beds. I want to say they cost around $100 for an 8-footer, plus or minus a few. I haven't really looked into the price. My neighbor has them in his yard, and he just got them, so I can't really give you, any kind of report on how long they lasted. So I will tell you that he tried making them raised beds out of pallet wood, and they did not last long. Now these boards that I have, the 2x8s, I think it was. Because you got to keep in mind, I built a whole bunch all at once. I spent several $100 on it. But these are treated lumber. Don't get the plain lumber. You want to get the treated. And I know that everybody's like, oh, you should never use treated lumber, yada yada, so on and so forth. I disagree. The new way they treat lumber is supposed to be less caustic. And I have had no issues, and we've been eating food out of this, and I have suffered no ill effects. Twitch. Just kidding. It hadn't hurt us any. All right. Now, long term, I don't know. But it has been fantastic for me. I love it. Now, if you have a cheap access to redwood, that's a whole lot better. Now, redwood or cedar, that's another good one. It's supposed to last like 20-25 years in the ground, which I believe. I have a cedar pole that I used as a border for our bed that has been there for at least 5 or 6 years, and it hadn't showed any signs of rot whatsoever. It's not treated or anything. It's not dried. It's just, I cut down a tree, or a tree fell down, I think, and so I used that as a border, and it's still going strong. I mean, I got some right here, some curved pieces. They're still growing strong, still solid, because of the oils in the cedar. And cedar trees do grow pretty fast. I mean, I've got one over there that's probably about 20 feet tall, that started growing right after we got here. So, most of the woods behind me were not there when we got here. They were just starting to grow, and then they come through and dug them out, or not dug the trees out, but they dug out the pond behind them, and that caused some of them to fall over during the windstorm. And I cut those down, and I used those as borders, and those rotted down within a couple of years. Right, so I don't recommend that. That's why I say treated lumber, and this is treated pine. And it's relatively inexpensive at the moment. Now, you know, with the trade wars and all that's going on right now, I don't know if that will continue. I don't know if it'll get more expensive. But you don't even have to do this. On the other side of these beds, I have beds that I just dug out of the ground. I basically just dug up a spot on the outside of my treated timbers, and then put a small fence around it, and have amended it with compost. And so far, they've been growing just about as good as any of the stuff that's inside the raised beds. And I know that here in Florida, one of the things we have is something called root knot nematodes. Now, these root knot nematodes, you can tell you got them when you pull up the roots of a plant, and you see knots in the root, like big fat knots, and that's some root knot nematodes getting in there. I don't know if it's where they lay their eggs, or if it's just just a side effect or something, but that's how you tell you got them. But I have found that there are ways that you can combat them, and you can still grow vegetables, though they probably won't grow quite as well. Like, one of the things I do is I try and put a lot of, allow a lot of mustard greens to grow up. And mustard greens apparently have a chemical in them that helps to prevent the root knot nematodes. But other than that, I deal with it. All right, I get what I get. I plant a lot of plants so that if I don't get enough out of one because it got attacked, I can get more out of another. And another thing is, one of the things about root knot nematodes is if you turn your soil and expose it to sunlight, it apparently kills the nematodes, both the good and the bad. But because there are good nematodes that will help out your soil, and that's part of the good life in your soil. But down here, it sometimes becomes necessary, in my opinion. Now, these are all just my opinions. All right, so if you're fixing to start a garden, you can do just the basics. You can do what I have done, and that's basically just dig up some ground and start throwing some plants in. I would recommend getting something to prevent things from growing in. Okay, like we have. Let me see if I can find some here. Give me just a second. So down here in Florida, we have something we call frog fruit, I think it is. Looks kind of like that. All right, a nice little handful of it. And the thing is, it makes these runners. All right, and these runners, like, and I can't even find the roots on this one. But one of the things that happens is this will run up into your garden bed, and you'll have to keep pulling that out because it will continue to try and move in. Now, it's a great ground covering. I like it because it's not grass. And you're saying, but I thought you liked your grass. I do like grass because I use it for clippings to make my compost. But this stuff gets in there, and now I have a variety of different things. Not just grass, and not using chemicals. That's considered a weed. And of course, if I really wanted pure grass, I would have to kill off all the weeds, and that would involve using chemicals and fertilizer, tons and tons of water, whereas this just grows. I do have a sprinkler system out here, But even in the times when I haven't been using the sprinkler system, the frog fruit continues to grow. Very versatile, very tough ground covering. Look into it. I mean, I like it. But back to the subject again. One of the reasons I like the raised beds is, one, they keep stuff from like that, and even this stuff here, which is the St. Augustine grass, all right, which this used to all be a St. Augustine yard, and it keeps coming back, and it also puts out runners. Find one here. Set a lot of them back. But it has these runners here, and it's just now starting to come back to life. And these will run up into your garden. And if you don't have some sort of barrier, some kind of elevation, you're going to be fighting this all the time as well. Now this isn't real hard to pull out, but that's just another challenge that you have. And then of course, we have the infamous dollarweed. Now dollarweed, I still haven't decided whether or not this is a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know for sure if this causes a lot of problems with the garden, but I've been consistently pulling it out. It's actually, excuse me, it's actually quite edible. Got kind of a peppery taste. I don't know if I would want to keep putting it in a salad, but I will tell you this: if I ever got hungry, you can bet your butt I'd be eating a lot of dollarweed, because man, you can hardly keep this from growing. All right, it's kind of like dandelions. Dandelions is another thing. I don't mind dandelions. Sorry, I got an airplane. A little bitty thing. Prop job. Dandelions are another completely edible weed that will spread. There's even been songs written about dandelion wine and so on. But back to the original subject is how you're going to set up your initial garden. My recommendation, what I would do, is I would do one of two things. One, I would get cinder blocks. Now cinder blocks are like $1.50, and you can put cinder blocks down and then do something called double digging. Now I'm going to do some videos here in a little while about some of these subjects that I cover here. All right. But one of the ways that you can take grass and turn it into a garden is something called double digging. And in essence, what you're going to do is you're going to basically scalp back your turf, whatever that may be. I would mow it first. You're going to scalp back your turf, all right, like on your lowest setting on your lawnmower. And then what you're going to do is you're going to dig that out, set it aside. And then you're going to dig another shovel full of dirt in that trough where you just pulled that dirt out. All right, and set that aside, separate. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take the next set of turf next to that trough that you just dug. You're going to dig it up. You're going to flip it over upside down, because most stuff won't grow upside down. You're going to lay it in that trough, and then you're going to dig another shovel full of dirt out of that trough, and you're going to put it on top of that upside down turf. And what that does is that buries that turf to where it's not going to see sunlight, so it will die and it'll rot down and it'll become organic material in your soil, which is nice. And then basically you just do that, you know, in path. So like I'm going to take the stuff from this path and I'm going to put it in that path. All right. And then where I was here, we're going to take the stuff from this path and we're going to put it in that path. And we're just going to work our way down, and then the stuff that you saved from the very first path, you're going to put in your last trough or path, whatever. Okay, so that's what's called double digging. It's a great way to start a garden. Now, to that, I would probably add some compost or some compost and manure. Manure is great. I mean, that's one of the things I have an issue with here is I don't have enough manure. I do have the ducks that run around. Like I've got 3 of them right behind the camera. I got geese that run around, and there's a couple dogs that come to visit, and you know, they poop on the yard. So I get a little bit of manure in the yard, and then that kind of works its way into the soil, and the grass clippings, which you know I in turn harvest and turn into my compost. But I don't have a good solid source of regular manure. If I was not in an HOA, and I may cheat, we'll see. But if I was not in an HOA, I would have a chicken coop right there. All right. that chicken coop would be a fantastic source of manure that I could compost down and put into my garden. If you have a solid source of manure, that would be a fantastic thing. You got to be careful though. Going out and grabbing horse manure or cow manure is fine, but you got to make sure that there's not something called persistent herbicides, like Grazon is one of them. Persistent herbicides essentially will kill off anything but grass that these animals, that the grass-eating animals eat. It'll kill anything off but that. All right, but the problem is, it also will go through the animal, come out in their manure, and if you use that manure in your garden, you will kill everything in your garden. If you're going to use manure, I highly recommend that you test it first by trying to grow beans in it. Beans will sprout really quickly. Typically, if you put a few bean seeds in, then you'll find out if it's going to grow. And I'd let them get up to where at least you got a couple of leaves, so you can see the leaves are actually nice full leaves and not wilted or dying off. But that's one of the concerns about manure. But manure is a very important source. Now, if you're here in the Jacksonville area, there's something called Zoo Poo, and the zoo here apparently puts out on a regular basis a schedule for when they'll actually put out composted zoo manure. All right, which is really neat. I've actually gotten some once. I don't have a pickup, unfortunately, so I have enough to really go out and pick up a bunch. But me and the neighbor went, and we got some zoo poo, and it did fine. I mean, I thought it was fantastic. So my replacement for manure is essentially just compost. All right. Now you can buy manure. Don't get me wrong. You can buy, like I think one of the brands is Black Cow. Black Cow. I haven't bought any because I really try to do it on the cheap down here. But I know that a lot of people have used Black Cow, and I know that of all of the companies out there in the world, their claim to fame is cow manure. So I'm pretty sure they're going to be careful about making sure there's no Grazon, because if their cow manure starts killing off plants, people are going to really be upset. All right. But that's another expense. But it is something you can do, and if you do that. What I had done at my daughter's house, as we took concrete blocks, and I have a video, I'll see if I can find it and I'll link it up here. We took concrete blocks, made a garden bed, and then what we did is we went to the store and bought topsoil, and we bought it at Walmart, and then we bought composted cow manure, mixed the two together, and that was the base foundation of their garden after I did the double digging method, where we basically, like I said, we dug up the turf, flipped it upside down in the next door trough, and so on, just moved our way down, so that basically we had all of the turf gone, all right, and then turned upside down and in the trough next to it, so it become biomaterials in the soil for the soil life to grow on. And she's grown fantastic in that garden now for years. And that was all St. Augustine too, which is pretty amazing. So, and then the last thing is, okay, well, once you get your garden built, what are you going to grow? And I'm going to work on a video about that as well. So, what do you want to grow? Well, there's a lot of information out there on what are the best survival foods and so on. Like, I'm going to tell you honestly, when I grew up, everybody had potatoes. I mean, but now everybody also had a basement to store them in, because you need a place that's cool and damp, all right? And that will keep potatoes, and you literally can keep them all year long for the most part, and oftentimes still have the baby potatoes to use as your potato seed the next year. All right, but everybody grew potatoes because it's a great staple food. It's a great food that will fill a belly and make you not starve. Okay, there are some issues that can happen, and there are some other foods that are great for storage and then long-term usage, like squash. If you get winter squash, it's that's why it's called winter squash, not because you grow it in the winter, but because it'll survive the winter as a squash, and you can eat on it until it's time to replant the seeds and grow a new batch. All right, if you grow enough squash. Carrots, apparently there are a few methods to where you can put them away in such a way that they're still fresh carrots, like in sand and buckets and so on, I think. I have not tried that myself, But I know that, you know, we did canning, and we would can the carrots, and then also freezing. You can also freeze carrots. Which, if you're going to be a gardener, I highly recommend buying a small freezer, or a big one if you got the money and the space to put it. Because you're going to want to freeze a lot of stuff. Like fruit, you can freeze. A lot of things you can freeze, okay? But then beyond those storage crops, you're looking at what do you like to eat, essentially, all right? What works for you? Like, I grow a ton of garlic. I'm trying to grow a ton of garlic. It looks like I got a pretty good crop going. But I try and grow a lot of garlic because we love garlic, all right? And, I mean, we probably go through at least one bulb a week, if not more. All right, so I've got 40 or 50 stashed where I'll have at least enough to hopefully get me through to the next year, okay? So, then the last reason, I think, to grow a garden, and possibly one of the best reasons to grow a garden, all right, is stress, all right? I'm sitting out here, you can see I got my shade tree behind me. I was going to sit in the shade, but for some reason I can't get my camera to pick it up and actually show. So I'm sitting out here in the sun, but you know, there is nothing better than being able to sit in your shade and look at your garden and be like, dang, look what I did. But beyond that, coming out here and pulling weeds and planting plants and then watching them grow, it's just a real nice, earthy way to relieve your stress. I mean, I can't imagine not growing my garden, to be honest with you. I mean, it's more than just making food, all right? It is good to get your hands in the dirt. It's good to get the sun on your face. It's good to just be outside and do something productive. And I'm going to tell you, I'm retired, okay? Yeah, I'm young. I mean, I'm only 62, and I retired young. I've been retired since 2016. And I don't really want to go into too much. I did, you know, I was retired out of the military. I did 24 years in the military. Achieved the rank of E8. So I don't make a huge amount of money, but I make enough to get by. And then I got some other investments. But at any rate, so I'm retired, and not having something to achieve can be very stressful. I mean, I can't just, I mean, I play video games. I play ESO constantly. I mean, I've got a huge amount of time in that game. And yes, you do achieve things, but you're achieving them sitting on your recliner or sitting at your desk or wherever you might go about playing video games. And it's just not as good as actually getting out in the sun and getting a garden going. I mean, it's a huge achievement. You know, every time you harvest, you're like, yeah, I did this, you know. And for a lot of these plants, most of them came from seed. I mean, I've got a few that I bought. Like I bought some peppers this year. 2 different times. So I bought bell peppers and I bought banana peppers, and I'll probably go out and get some spicy peppers because we didn't get any of those to grow either. Still haven't quite figured out exactly how to go about doing that well. All right, but at any rate, but beyond that, everything else here came from seed. A lot of it came. No, I take it back. Strawberries. I also bought strawberry plants. All right, because strawberry plants are hard to get. Yeah, strawberry plants are hard to grow from seed. I have done it, and we had a whole bunch of strawberries back in the back, but they all died off because we let the weeds grow up. But we had a ton of strawberry plants back there that we had grown from seed in a paper towel. But it was a challenge. It was a serious, no kidding challenge. And I may do it again this year. I may try and see if I can't get some started again, maybe in the house or something. We'll see. You know, that might be an interesting experiment. But I'm telling you, man, if you're having a stressful life, which we all do, I mean, you know, between politics and stock market and you name it, you know, everybody hating on everybody else, and the internet, man, the internet's just insane these days. You know, there's a lot of stress in our lives. You know, I know that for many people, the expectation is you're going to spend your life at work and, you know, spend your proceeds from work on the family that you don't see. And that's just sad, okay? I don't like that, but you know, that's a whole other story. But the bottom line is there's a lot of expectations from the workforce currently. And all of those produce stress. All those expectations produce a lot of stress and really make it hard to get by in life. and having a way of de-stressing, and a good excuse to get away from work. Ah, dude, I can't stay late tonight. I got some tomatoes I got to get in the ground. But it's a fantastic way of relieving stress, and I think it is just so good for you to get out, get your hands in the dirt. Sometimes I go barefoot and I get my toes in the dirt too. And I think that helps. You know, like people tell you, touch grass. Get out there and touch some grass. Even better yet, touch some dirt and start growing some plants. And that's why, you know, every time I end a video, I always tell you, grow something in your yard. You'll thank yourself. And it's not just about the food. It's about getting out in the yard, getting out in the sun, and doing something that doesn't involve a screen. Even though I'm looking at a screen right now while I'm recording, and you know, making something for you to watch on your screen. All right, so those are the things that you need to consider. All right, you want to start a garden. One of the biggest reasons you want to ask why. What do you want to do with the garden? How do you want the results to come out? And then you're going to ask yourself, how am I going to go about it? What sort of methods am I going to use to start my actual garden? And then, you know, what do you want to grow? You know, what type of garden? And you know, my take on that is, why do I grow a garden? I want to grow food. All right, 1, 2. I think it's a great de-stressor. You know, I mean, sometimes when I get upset, you know, because you know, me and the wife are just like every other married couple. Sometimes we don't agree. So, and that's typical. I mean, you know, if you think you're unusual in that, you're not. But at any rate, so when that happens, one of the best de-stressors I have is come out here in the garden, pull some weeds, and think about life. Play some music maybe. Maybe just sit in the shade. Sometimes I do. I like to just sit back here in the shade, sip a cup of coffee, and look at what I got. You know, that's pretty cool. My other chair like this rotted out. I need to get some more chairs out here. But yeah, I think it's a fantastic thing. You know, you can just sit back and enjoy the morning and look at what you got going on. And that's why I like to hand water my garden as well, because I get to see what I've done. All right, so those are my reasons for gardening. You know, the stress, the food, and then, you know, I think the health aspect. Get out here, which I'm not the healthiest person in the world, but you know, the health of getting out in the sun and touching grass, touching dirt. It's a fantastic thing. So I'm gonna leave you to that for now, and then I'm gonna go into probably next week or next couple of days, probably next week. I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna go about creating a garden from scratch, and then from there we'll talk more about what I'm going to put in that garden, and or what I would put in that garden. And I don't know that I'll actually go there. We'll see. Depends on how much money I want to spend, to be fair. And then you know, of course, whatever other videos come up as we go along. All right. So I want to leave you with this: grow something. Get something growing in your yard. It's going to help you out a number of different ways. It's going to save you money on food. It's going to make you feel better about life. And, you know, it's just really nice to do. Okay? I highly recommend it. The food you get out of your own garden is going to be so much better than what you get at the store. And, you know, it's what you made. So that makes it even better. All right, thanks for stopping by. Do me a favor, give me a like and subscribe. Let me know what you think. Most importantly, grow something. Get something growing in your yard. You'll thank yourself. I guarantee. All right, come back and see me.